Hi everyone, this is the first video of the school year, so welcome. We make these videos every day for whenever you guys are absent and need to get caught up, or if you just want to review something. This particular lesson is on Unit 1.1, Day 3, Angle, Vocab, and Types, and it should say that at the top of the paper that you're copying all this down onto, so double check, make sure that's the right one. Today we're talking about angles. Some of the vocab that goes with it, the 4 different types of angles that you knew probably from middle school, maybe a little bit earlier, and then we're going to apply some algebra to it, so some old stuff, some new stuff. Okay, so this section is actually from the notes you guys took on Monday, the one with the really big table. So it's not the 1.1 Day 3 notes, it's probably Day 1 or Day 2, I believe. I think it's Day 1. So this just goes in that tops or one of those columns of the notes. So if you haven't already, make sure you go back and find that. It's the one where we had segment and ray and line and all that stuff. So feel free to pause here, find that, and get all of this stuff copied down for that section. I'm going to move on to today's lesson, though. This is where the paper you do have has the notes. So up at the top, an angle has 2 sides. They're made of rays, and they have the same initial or starting point. B is called the vertex. That's the one that's in the middle. That's kind of the point of the angle. And it's the point where the rays connect or meet. And this angle, this particular one over here, can be called angle CBA or angle ABC. So feel free to pause, copy that down. I did want to talk about, before we go on in the next section, that it's CBA because we follow the order. So CBA and ABC, ABC. Notice that both times the vertex, the B, is in the middle. So I can't say ACB, kind of like this guy has down here, because it's got to follow the order of the picture. If I go ACB, that's not even tracing the angle itself. So make sure the vertex is always in the middle. And I believe you wrote that on your other notes. So you can either rewrite it if you want or use that one for reference. Okay, but that's very, very important when you're naming it. We're going to talk about that a little bit further. Come on. On this one, you probably already know all of or at least some of these words. So pause for a second. See if you can come up with in your brain, what are the 4 angle types that we're going to talk about? Got acute, right, obtuse, and straight. Now acute is any angle less than 90. Hopefully you were kind of thinking that in your head. If you need a way to remember it, think of like, oh, it's a cute little angle, like you'd say a cute little kitten or a cute little puppy. It's a cute little angle because it's smaller. It's the smallest of them. So it might look something like that. That might be a good example of an acute angle. The next one is the right angle, and that one is always exactly 90 degrees. That's a degree sign. And it usually looks like this, and then it has to have that symbol there, that little box or that corner or the step, whatever you want to call it, that represents the right angle. Obtuse, I kind of think of like obese angle, obtuse angle, because it's an angle greater than 90, greater than 90 degrees, okay, but less than 180. Hopefully you guys can fit that in your box a little bit better than I could. So it's between 90 and 180, so it's a little bit bigger an angle, might look something like that guy. The last one is kind of self-explanatory. It's a straight angle because it looks like a straight line because it's exactly 180 degrees. And like I said, it looks like a straight line. So feel free to pause here, get all those filled in. That should be the middle section of the notes that you're working on for today. So down here now we've got something that looks kind of crazy and complicated, but in reality it's actually pretty common sense. You might even already know this postulate without even realizing you do. So go ahead and fill in the three words. I believe it's sum, ray, and vertex. The sum of two angles. Sum means adding them together. So adding together two angles that share a ray and a vertex. Okay, that's this guy right here. The vertex is O, the ray is OY. When they share a ray and a vertex, if you add them together, you'll get the measure of the large angle formed by their outer sides. In other words, what it's saying is XOY, which is this guy right here, that angle. If I add that amount to YOZ, which is this angle right here, that will tell me how many degrees the biggest angle is, XOZ, which is this outer one. Okay? Most of you guys probably could have figured that out in your head. It's kind of common sense looking at the picture. This small angle connected to this small angle makes the two of them sandwiched together. Okay? That's all the postulate is saying. It's just putting in fancy, more concrete words, something you probably already could have figured out. But let's put it into practice. Oops. Pause right here. Try number 1 and number 2 on your own. You might be able to figure it out without my help and then just check the answers and have the correct work. Okay, so pause right here, please. Try it on your own. It'll give you some good practice. All right, so for this one, they're looking for angle BLA. And I am tracing that so I'm aware of which angle I'm actually looking for. So they want this whole angle. Okay, well I've got two smaller angles here. I have 105 degrees and I have 63 degrees. Well, based on my angle addition postulate, if I add the two angles together, I get the big angle that they make. Well, 105 plus 63 is equal to 168, so that's how many degrees my big angle is. Pretty simple for that one. The next one takes a little bit more thinking. If you look at what it's asking, first of all, it's looking for angle WYX. So it wants you to figure out how big is this little angle here. Hopefully you tried it out on your own because you might have already figured it out. The whole thing, instead of asking for the whole thing like the last one, you actually could figure it out on your own. If WYZ is a straight line, how many degrees is it? We talked about this earlier in the lesson. Straight lines always equal 180 degrees. Well, if this whole thing has to add up to equal 180, and I've already got this 100 degrees taken out, what do I have remaining? 80 degrees. That must mean that this section is 80 degrees, so that 80 and 100 will make the full 180 like we know it's supposed to be. So again, somewhat basic, a little bit more thinking with that. Now this guy, we got to do a little bit more algebra with this, but it's the same setup. What I want you guys to start with is writing out the angles themselves. Some of you guys might think you already know how to set this up, but we've seen a lot of people struggle through this, so bear with me. Take the basic steps so you know what you're doing. If we're following our angle addition postulate, one of the small angles is angle STJ. The other small angle is JTU. And if I add those two angles together, I should get the big angle, which is STU, the whole thing. Okay, so I want you to start with this step. I know it seems basic and silly, but a lot of you guys are going to struggle with figuring out what to plug in where because there's a lot of information they throw at you. So start with this. It kind of gives you a foundation to figure out what do you do from this point. They tell us that the measure, that's what the little m means, the measure of STJ equals 4x plus 4. That means I can take this group and substitute in 4x plus 4. All right, not too bad so far. It also tells me that JTU is equal to 140 degrees. Again, I can take this whole group out and sub in 140 degrees. And the last group, same thing. It tells me angle STU is equal to 33x minus 1. All I did was sub out the original angles and plug them into the equation like we had just set up. Now comes the algebra. This is the part where it's the integrated math. We're taking geometry ideas and plugging in some algebra with it. Now on the left-hand side, there's some stuff I could deal with here. Now 4x and 4 are not like terms, so please don't add them together to get 8x. Okay, you can only add x's with x's, and there's none on this side. 4 plus 140, I could put those together though. So let's rewrite this as 4x plus 144. 4 plus 140. And then on the other side, just drop down the stuff that we had before. Okay, I've combined all my like terms. Now I need to start moving some stuff to each side to get things combined. So let's figure out how to move the variables first. I generally want to move the smaller number or move it in such a way that I end up with something positive. I want to move the 4x, because I'll know I'll end up with a positive number then. If you want to move the 33, that's fine. Notice how I'm doing the opposite. So positive 4x minus 4x, because what's 4 minus 4? 0, and it cancels out. That's the whole point of algebra. Kind of refreshing our memories on that. It's been a little while for some of us. Hopefully that rings a few bells. 144 now drops down. 33x minus 4x is 29x. Got to take that with us. Okay, now I need to get this variable by itself. I can't deal with the 29 yet. I got to move this 1 out of the way. Well, it's being subtracted. The opposite of that is addition. Whatever I do to one, gotta do to the other. So that's gone. And I've now added 1 to the other side. Got 145. Okay, now this last part a lot of people have forgotten, but when you have two things right next to each other in math, that actually means multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So I'm going to divide each side by 29. See how x is still there? I haven't canceled out x. That would defeat my whole purpose. And if you calculate out 145 divided by 29, you should get 5 for your final answer. And that's what they wanted us to find. So we found x. The back side of this worksheet is your assignment. The lower portion has to do with this angle addition postulate, and the upper portion is more of the basic vocab like we did at the beginning. Please, please ask for help or email if you need anything. If you're struggling, now is the time to get it figured out, because we are going to increase the amount of algebra we do throughout the year. So if you're struggling now, take some time to get a quick refresher from one of the teachers. We'd be more than happy to help you. Hope this helped. Feel free to go back and rewind if you need anything. And shoot us an email like I said.